All right. Once again, gonna do a lecture here on World War II. This will be my last lecture on World War II. In the last talk, we kind of went over the war, a war in two theaters. We talked about how America joined the fight against the Germans in Europe and against Japan in the Pacific. And today I just want to talk a bit more about the relationship between America and our allies and our enemies, what's called World War II diplomacy, and then just highlight some interesting things about America's decision to drop the two atomic bombs that ended World War II. We're going to do an assignment, a discussion board assignment, where we kind of weigh the moral implications of that decision and some of the pros and also the cons that came along with that. But that's for tomorrow. Today, I just want to wrap this up, and I'm going to try to keep it here under 10 minutes. I don't want to go too long for today's lecture. Before I get into it, I do want to show you one last thing. On our unit page here, video clips, these have been kind of sprinkled throughout some of the assignments. The D-Day clip, this is from Band of Brothers, and it was in the second front assignment. It's about 10 minutes. It's a pretty cool clip. I encourage you to watch it. Why We Fight is somewhat disturbing, but I think it's a powerful clip. It's also from Band of Brothers, and it shows when E Company discovers and liberates a Nazi Jewish concentration camp. And, in this course, we don't get to talk about the Holocaust, but it's important to understand that that was a fundamental cause behind the war, and just it's graphic, but it is a powerful clip on why we fought in World War II. Leyte Gulf is a great story of a soldier who was stranded at sea in the Pacific, and it's a real, true firsthand account. It's a cool thing to watch. And finally, Iwo Jima down here. In the last lecture, I talked about island hopping, and island hopping kind of sounds fun. Like, oh, it's like a cruise. We're gonna hop from island to island. Island hopping was not. It was devastating and grueling and deadly. And this clip shows what it was like to take the island of Iwo Jima. And it is graphic in nature too, so be careful as you watch that. There's some disturbing images, but it shows you what island hopping looked like. So I encourage you, check out some of those clips. If we were in school, we would be watching these, discussing these. It's kind of up to you to make the most of it here. With that said, today I'm going to look at this document here. It's called Wartime Conferences. And this document shows you 4 pictures of the Allied leaders. Again, America is on the Allied side. The German enemy, they were called the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. And so it's the Allies versus the Axis. And these pictures show America, our leader, FDR, and then eventually Harry Truman, meeting with the other leaders of Great Britain and Germany throughout the war. I'm going to see. I don't know that I can type on this. And I wish I could put dates on these, so I'm just going to have to say it. But throughout the war, America continually had conferences to meet with our allies and to plan strategy. If you were to put these 4 pictures in order, Casablanca was 1942, Tehran was 1943, Yalta was February 1945, and Potsdam was July 1945. Okay, so just real quick again, 1942, 1943, February of 45, July of 45. So they kind of go in chronological order. At first, what you'll see is FDR meeting with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. This is not the first time these guys met. They met actually before America was even in the war at the Atlantic Conference. They formed what was called the Atlantic Charter. We watched a video where Churchill visited for Christmas that first year, right after Pearl Harbor. But in 1942, these two leaders got together at Casablanca in North Africa to plan Second Front strategy. Notice that Stalin, this guy here, the German leader, is not there. America always had a closer relationship with Great Britain. Same language, a lot of the same values, democracy. The Russians speak a different language. They have a different culture. They are much more given to communism and dictatorship, so different political ideals. We were always closer with Great Britain. And while these three do work together to win the war, by the end of the war, there is going to be a division between East and West. West being America and Great Britain, and East being the Soviet Union. That relationship of the Allies during World War II, and really the breakdown of it towards the end, is what's going to lead to what's called the Cold War. Capitalism versus communism, the United States versus the USSR, and that Cold War will last for most of the rest of the 1900s. It really kind of begins or is born out of this World War II diplomacy. So FDR and Churchill planning strategy without Stalin in 1942. By 1943, Stalin is here. And if you notice, FDR is kind of sidled up next to him, a little more division here. This is where FDR is like playing the middleman. And he's telling Joseph Stalin, yes, D-Day is coming. We're going to do a second front. We're going to come through France. Just give us time. And you can see Churchill is slouched and just kind of grumpy. By February 1945, this is towards the end of the war. D-Day has happened. We have fought against France. Look at how worn down these guys look. Just contrast FDR from 42, 43 to 45. He is haggard, worn down. In truth, FDR has just been elected for a fourth term, and he's going to pass away just about 2 months after this picture. He dies in April of 1945. But you can see that the war is taking a toll on all of these guys. At Yalta in 1945, the end was near for Germany. We plan what the post-war situation for Germany is going to look like. At Yalta, Germany was essentially divided into 4 zones between Great Britain, the United States, Russia, and France. And we talk about how to rebuild Germany after the Nazis are eliminated. The other thing that happens at Yalta is a very important promise. Joseph Stalin promises FDR that once the Germans are defeated, he will help us in our war against Japan in the Pacific. In fact, Stalin tells FDR that the Soviet Union will join the fight against Japan 100 days after the Germans surrender. And it's kind of a promise that FDR and then his successor Truman will file away in the back of their heads. Skip down to this last picture. Potsdam. Potsdam is in Germany. Germany has been defeated. The Allies can now meet together in Germany and talk about what's going to happen next. What you'll notice, Stalin, the Soviet leader, is still here, but the Great and American leader has changed. Churchill was voted out of office, and Clement Attlee has taken his place. FDR has died, and Harry Truman is the new president. These two do not have the relationship that Roosevelt and Churchill did, and they certainly don't have the relationship with Stalin that FDR was maybe able to kind of nurture and carry on. This is in July. Germany has surrendered, and we're trying to plan the end game for the war against Japan. At this point, we have an atomic bomb, but the Soviets don't know it. We keep it a secret. At Potsdam, we issue an ultimatum to Japan. We say, surrender or be destroyed. Now, we don't tell them that we have an atomic bomb. We don't even tell our ally, Soviet Union, that we have the bomb, but we are threatening nuclear attack on Japan. Why is this important? Well, Germany had surrendered in May, and the Soviets had promised to get involved in the war against Japan by mid-August. The catch is if we can end the war without Soviet help, that is to our advantage. But in order to do so, we would have to use nuclear weapons that we have not told the Soviets about. Eventually, after Potsdam, we do drop the atomic bombs, and again, we'll talk about that controversial nature morally tomorrow or in future assignments. But what's really, I think, interesting about it is we dropped those bombs on August 6th and August 8th. And this is before that 100-day period is up. We were trying, in my opinion, to kind of win the war without Soviet support. The Soviet Union will then declare war on Japan on August 9th, one day after the atomic bombs have been dropped. And then Japan will almost immediately surrender, I believe, informally on August 15th, and then more formally in September. But this decision to drop the bombs without Soviet knowledge and kind of jumping the 100-day deadline really sows a seed of division between us and the Soviet Union. From that point on, America and the Soviet Union will not trust one another, and we will always be in a battle to one up one another, whether that's for nuclear weapons, for conventional armies, for territories, or eventually things like the space race or other technologies. And again, this wartime diplomacy sets the stage for the coming Cold War of the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Hi, that's it for World War II. I'm going to finish it there. Over the next few days, we'll have some assignments and some final assessments. And then I think our next unit will be about the Cold War. Thanks for watching.